Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to the first Power Up stream of the year since our New Year's event. I appreciate everyone who's checking in today. We're starting a new series called Just Getting Started January. Everyone, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people like to start the New Year's off by rethinking their goals, and we wanted to take this opportunity to talk with someone who has put the iron to the grindstone, so to speak, and really stepped up to make their goals a reality. And not just Forrest of Knuckleduster Studios here today, but many other developers. There's a lot of great creativity, and we just want to give each of them a platform to talk about what they're doing with their game, how they got started with their games, why they're passionate about it, because there's so much more to games than just each of the moving pieces. There's a story behind each of those, and so we want to dive into that today. So without further ado, I will go ahead and allow our guest Forrest of Knuckleduster Studios to briefly introduce himself today. Thanks for joining us today, Forrest.
Hi, nice to be here, Brian.
Awesome. So what is your background? You told me a little bit about your company, Knuckleduster Miniatures. So how long have you guys been in business, and what made you want to start your business?
Wow, so we've been in business really, I started writing and publishing books under the name Knuckleduster in about 1998. About 2003, we started selling our own miniatures. I started learning to sculpt and started casting and mold making myself. Got to the end of the 2000s and we ran a Kickstarter. Actually, we made several product lines of miniatures for the historical miniatures gaming hobby. War of 1812, Wild West miniatures. Then we got to 2017 and we ran a Kickstarter for a game called Gunfighter's Ball.
Hmm.
And Gunfighter's Ball has really, really taken off. We have a big group on Facebook that exchanges scenarios and talks about the rules and talks about the figures. And so that was a really successful Kickstarter. I'm sorry, it was 42,000 that we raised to put some more miniatures into production, and we raised another 20,000 in the backer kit phase, which really gave us a taste of like, how do you get your idea to the market and get it into production? Now, all of this was the historical miniatures wargaming community, right? And so some of your viewers will be familiar with that, some won't, or some have only watched it from the periphery. But over the last several years, have got the idea that that style of gameplay, it's a lot of fun, but it's very hard to get into because people have to paint, they have to model. I mean, that's not what everybody wants to do. And not only that, even if you did want to do it, it can be kind of intimidating because you're already walking into a hobby where there's people have all this expertise. And so I wanted to create a game that took the best elements of what we were doing with Gunfighter's Ball and put it into a format that anybody could enjoy. And you don't have to do any modeling. You don't have to do any painting. You could just throw it in a box, get it out on the table and play it, and you're done. So that was the genesis of this. And that's sort of the progress of our company over the years. We have a commercial space in Bloomington Normal, Illinois, right off of Route 74 and 55. I know you're in Indianapolis, is it? Or no, you're in Fort Wayne?
South Bend.
South
Area.
Bend.
Yep,
South
correct.
Bend, right. Yeah, it's right down 74, right off of 74. In fact, you're welcome to visit sometime if you want.
Absolutely.
But we have a 3D printer. I'm a digital sculptor. And so I sculpt all the products, and I have a couple of part-time employees that help me out. We print all of our own designs on a jewelry grade 3D printer. It's made by Envision Tech. It's designed for the jewelry industry, and we take those. We make rubber molds, spin casting molds, and cast our own products, package our own products. We have some outside vendors who do some stuff for us, and then they get shipped all over the world. So.
That's awesome. I love to hear it. I think my favorite thing is that you took a world where, you said may be overwhelming to someone new, and you made it approachable for people. So what do you think is What do you think is the connection between the world of miniatures and board games? Where do you think they overlap, and where do you think they complement each other, and where are they different?
Yeah. So, and I think this is a really important discussion to have because there's a bit of territorial nature
Mm.
between hobbies, and it's any hobby. I don't care what hobby it is. The model railroaders are territorial about their thing. The miniature gamers are
Mhm.
territorial about their thing. It's universal. Everybody feels that way about their hobby. They're very protective of it. So yes, there are definitely areas where board games and miniatures games do not overlap. You know, the most important thing, and I understand, and this is perfectly legitimate, of course, the most important thing to a board gamer is the gameplay itself. And oftentimes those games are abstract, or they're language based, or they're puzzle based. You know, there's cooperative games. There are these wonderful different subgenres that appeal to different the game experience that different people want. So this kind of a game is really for the type of person who has the role play fantasy aspect of a game, that they don't just want it to so they don't want it too abstracted. They
Mm.
want to have a certain concrete element of it that has, you know, miniatures, that has moving terrain, shooting, cover, tactical movement, things like that. And so it's a person who's a bit of a dreamer, a bit of has a bit of interest in the history itself, the
Mm.
actual subject matter, and wants to have fun with sort of the fantasy element of being transported to that setting. You know.
It seems like it's to create your character just with a different thing. Because when I think of that, I think of Elder Scrolls or something like that, where you're creating a character and you're going to that fantasy land. But this is a more tangible. So that's a video game element, and this game is more tangible, where you're diving into that same history, but you're kind of feeling it and seeing it play out in front of you in this aspect. Is that right?
Absolutely. It is very much a first person shooter arena game. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. The characters are very distinct from one another, like they would be in Team Fortress or something like that. And
Hmm.
you run around
Yeah.
the board getting tokens, picking up items, shooting at each other, laughing at each other, drawing cards, playing funny cards on each other, dirty tricks, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the feel that it's going for. Really, is more overlap almost with video games.
Hmm.
Now, these tactical board game shooter type things, you know, if you're a hardcore board gamer, there's some derision among them with this kind of a game, and that's okay. I understand that, but this is for that segment of of the audience who enjoys that type of thing. It is its own type of thing. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah,
No, that's amazing, and I mean, there's obviously different elements to your game, to any game. We've got multiple, like, first person shooters as a genre. So how many different versions of that can you make? From you got Counter Strike, you have uh, Call of Duty, you have Rainbow Six Siege, you have Escape from Tarkov, and each of those games has its own feel to it. And now you through your game, you're able to take it to board gamers and add another element to what it means to be an FPS, right? And so
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
that's awesome. So why don't we dive into your game a little bit more? You told us kind of what it is. Why don't you kind of show us what the setup is, walk us through the pieces a little bit, and maybe show us a little bit of gameplay?
Cool. Okay, so the heart of the game is the characters. So you have you see, I'm going to bring the camera over here and put it close to the board. And as we discussed earlier, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of motion sickness by doing this, but it'll only last a very short time.
It's part of the gameplay experience, right?
That's right, absolutely. Well, it's a VR game, so you might get motion sickness. Here we go. I'll bring this right down here, and then I should be able to see on yonder video screen what I'm
Mhm.
showing you. Okay, so you have a game board. The game board is your level. We don't call it a level, but that's what it is, like a video game level. So you have your terrain here. And it's a cartoon representation of an Old West town. I think probably from looking at the artwork, you might get the idea right away. Don't take ourselves too seriously. This is a bit of a Charlie Brown feel to it. It's or a Calvin and Hobbes. It's a cartoon.
Hmm.
Um, and on the board, you have tokens. These tokens are covered. Are There's question marks underneath them. This is where you find items. So as you wander around the board, and I'll put a character out here. Let's see. Let's do this villain. I like the villain with his big top hat and his twirly mustache. So he's running around the board and he's going to find during the combat items. And there's a deck where he could find any number of different kinds of things, a 10-gallon hat, a wood axe. He could find weapons. He could find a duster, which allows him to hide items from other players. He could find a really awesome pistol like this one. Get the light out from there. There you go. So that's one aspect of it is the seeking and finding of the items that are going to help you in the combat. And your player, off to the side of the board, you have a rig here. You have a little dashboard that has your health points, which are poker chips, and it has what's called a stun chip. We won't worry about that right now, but that has to do with things that can happen to you during the game. And then your characters, each character has a character card and a figure. So this villain, for instance, has a character card that lists his special abilities and how much he's worth in bounty if you knock him off, and what kind of weapon that he carries. So at the beginning of the game, people choose their characters, and they try to choose their characters with the scenario in mind and also with the other players' characters in mind. So if your character chooses a particular character that has a particular ability, you want to choose one that has an offsetting ability or some way to counter the strengths of your opponent's character. And then each character has a weapon from the very beginning, and that gets added to your inventory. And you have just like a video game, you have inventory management. As you pick up things, they go into your inventory, and you equip them in either your right hand, your left hand, or some things require both hands to equip. And so you'll be managing this little dashboard while you play the game. I'll move this off to the side. So during a normal turn, you're going to move and shoot. You're going to have up to 6 players, up to 6 characters on the board at one time. They're going to be running around the board shooting at each other. For movement, you're going to use a 6-sided D3, and you use 2 of them, and they'll have a sort of a central tendency that doesn't get any wild rolls, So a D3 would be set up with 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. So it's still 6-sider. So you'll roll and move. You don't have to use your whole movement. There are various obstacles on the board. So this guy rolled a 4. He can move 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4. But there's instances where you might have to climb over an obstacle. There's instances where it's going to cost you extra movement to get over an obstacle. You're going to try to seek cover from the other guy's shooting. If somebody does shoot at you, let's say it's this little guy who is the old timer. Can you see this very well? I can't see the monitor very well from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I wish that we were able to get 4K quality because I know there's a
Yeah.
lot more detail to his face, but it looks pretty good from here.
Yeah, I'll back it off a little.
No
Okay,
worries.
so when one character shoots at another, everything that you need to know in order to resolve that combat is on the cards that are sitting right in front of you. So if you recall, I said that people have an inventory of their weapons and their items. The card for the weapon has everything you need to know about using it. So in this case, let's put him over here instead, a little further away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's 5 spaces away. So he would look at a range of 3 to 6 spaces he has to roll a 13 or less on a 20-sided die in order to hit. But then there's other factors. Between him and him, this water trough is in the way. So that's going to give the guy cover. Now, all of the extra little bits, and some of your viewers might be familiar with the term modifier. It's used in tabletop miniature games all the time. It's a modifier changes the 2-hit number on a dice roll. So you'd look up and see, do any of these things apply? The target's behind cover. That's a -2. So what would have been a 13 to hit is now 12 and 11 to hit. And so he would roll. If he got a 3, which is excellent. Now, he had more than enough to hit because he wants to get the 2-hit number or less in order to hit. So then the wound itself is drawn from a deck. So you don't have to look anything up in a chart. You just draw it from the deck. Oh my gosh, this guy got a neck wound. 2 things happen to him. He rolls 1 3-sided die and adds a 3 to it. 1d3 plus 3. That's how much damage the guy took. So you roll it. He took a 1 plus 3. That's 4 points of damage. And if you remember, his little dashboard here has the health points in chips. So he cashes in chips. What did we say? Was that 3 points of damage he took? 4 points of damage. So he takes 4 of his chips and he cashes them in. So he has 9 chips to start out with, which is easy to remember because it's like having 9 lives. So you have 9 health points to begin with. He just lost 4 of them in that one exchange. When he gets down all the way to 3 red chips, the last 3 chips are red. That means he's mortally wounded. And now every time he tries to do something in any kind of a combat action, he's going to carry this penalty for being mortally wounded all the time. So he drops a whole level sort of in his ability level. So do you have any questions so far?
Seems pretty self-explanatory. I guess
Yeah.
One question I did have though, where do they tell, movement penalties and cover penalties again for the barriers?
So the barriers have there isn't much to remember. The dotted lines on the board, and I'm glad you mentioned cover and the terrain aspect of it, because one of the big differences between a miniatures game and a board game is that a miniatures game has some sort of squishiness in the rules that requires interpretation. Oh, is this cover? Is this not cover? Blah, blah, blah. In this one, because it's a board game, the board just tells you. So there's dotted lines. Every time you cross a dotted line, you have to subtract 1 from your move. Anything that gets in your way is cover. Doesn't matter what it is. Anything that obstructs the shot is cover. And the figures have a little arrow on the front of the base. And that little arrow is where the line of sight is actually taken from. And because they're octagonal, they notch into the squares in very precise increments. So there is no mushiness. Like, you can't be like this. You have to either be like this or like this, right? So that would be a big difference between this and a tabletop miniatures game. So where he's at, if he was actually facing this guy, and we actually have a string. That's one of the game accessories I didn't put on the table, but you take a string and you just, any straight edge will do, but you go from that arrow to any point on his base. And if anything obstructs it, that's cover. So most of the time people get cover. You have to kind of blunder to leave yourself out in the middle of the open because there's plenty of cover on the board. So you're always thinking when you end your move, am I in a position where somebody can get around me and get around the cover? Right. So there are white arrows at various places. White arrows mean you have to climb to get over it. And climbing is an entire action. I should have mentioned you get 2 actions in your turn. Your turn consists of 2 actions: firing, moving, managing your inventory, attacking. Yeah, there's various kinds of attacks, various kinds of moving, but one of the kinds of move is a climb action. So yeah, it'll tell you right on the board. There's only a few categories. Going through a door always costs you a movement point. That's about it. You can't move through solid black lines. Those are walls.
Wonderful.
Yep. So it's very straightforward. When you when you do hit somebody and cause them to cash in at least one chip, they get to draw. The person who got hit gets compensated a little bit. They get a dirty trick card. And this is something that you manage in a deck in your hand. As you take hits, you start to accumulate these dirty trick cards. And, you might take 3 or 4 wounds before your character is eliminated. So when you pick these up, um, they have things on them that can be used to affect gameplay, and you can play them at absolutely any time during an opponent or your turn, anytime. You can even pick the point during your opponent's turn when you throw it. So this particular one, bystander calls out a warning. That would be one you would want to play on an ally or play it for yourself, because that's going to give you give your opponent less accuracy, because they called out a warning. Obviously, you ducked or something. So also the role of the bystanders and the townsfolk are abstracted into these cards. Like, for instance, I might play this card that a wagon went down the street right as you were about to shoot and it got in the way. A stroke of luck, re-rolls, things like that. But there are some funny ones in here too, like a horse bite. If you're adjacent to a horse and somebody throws this card, the horse can bite you and deal damage to you. There's also a kicking horse. Adrenaline rush. You can make a movement action immediately, get an extra movement action. Muscle memory. There's one very powerful card in here that you hope to get, and it is for the next turn, all hits are misses, and all misses are hits. And if you throw that, the opponent has dug himself into a position that you can't get to. He's got tons of cover. He thinks that he's unassailable. You play that card and it reverses everything on him, and now he's a perfect target. So that's one that doesn't come up very often, but it's in there. So those are the dirty tricks, and you earn those by being hit. And also, after you die, your character dies, you can still play dirty trick cards. So that means when your character's eliminated, let's say you got 6 guys playing, you're still going to be able to influence play by playing those cards. So you're out of the board, but you're not out of the game. And then one other big feature of this game is there's a definite ending point. I'm going to rotate this. Okay, so most of the scenarios, and when I say scenarios, there's a deck of 6 cards. It says Wildlife in the Far West. It's a scan from an antique book. And there's 6 of these little scenarios, and they're each one markedly different from the others. One of them is the Gunfight Royale, which is every man for himself, and everybody spawns on a numbered location. That's really straightforward. But then there's ones where you start in the bank and you try to get the loot off the board. There's one where you start, nobody has a weapon when they start. Everybody has to find their weapon, and stuff like that. But the way it ends, either you've eliminated all of your opponents, or there's this timekeeper figure called the Lone Rider of Eternity. If anybody out there is a Raising Arizona fan, you have the Lone Biker of the Apocalypse, so had a little bit of that in there. The Lone Rider of Eternity gets activated when the first player gets a mortal wound, and he begins moving down a time track, and and that is going, when he reaches the end, it doesn't matter where the gameplay is, if there's a stalemate, whatever, it's at that point the game is over. And he's going to move anywhere up to maybe 6 spaces a turn, because he rolls 2d3s are rolled for his movement at the beginning or at the end of each turn after everyone else is gone. And he can land on spaces here that trigger things to happen in the game, like any of the dead players can draw a dirty trick card, so they can build more dirty tricks into their hand. So yeah, there's brawling. Players can brawl each other. The found items are pretty extensive. There's some things in there, like a boilerplate that can be equipped so that it will deflect shots to certain parts of the body. There's a dress that can be put on, and the dress will prohibit characters from shooting you from more than 6 spaces away because they don't know if you're a bystander or not. So yeah, dynamite. Yeah, dynamite's the most powerful item. And then if you happen to break into the bank vault, you get a wild card draw where you can just look through the deck and pick what you want. So that's in a nutshell. There's a called shot where if you get a critical success, you can draw 5 wound cards and deal the worst one to your opponent.
Nice. So real quick, you said there are scenario cards, there are character cards, there are dirty trick cards, weapon cards. How many sets of various cards do you have?
Let's see,
Then
that would
total.
be so that would be, let's see, we got weapons. We got a starting weapons deck that's only for, so it's easy to find the weapons that the characters start with. You don't have to rifle through a longer deck to find them.
Mm-hmm.
So you got 2 decks, 3 decks with the characters, 4 decks with the dirty tricks, 5 decks with the regular items deck, and then if you want to call it a deck, but there's a handful of these cards, which are your little reference cards that you have with you at all time, and you don't have to look things up in the book because they're going to be on this little card. And so yeah, that's 5/6 decks. You have the item tokens. One of those item tokens has a $sign on it. That's the wild card. That's the one that starts in the bank vault. You have 12 characters, plastic cast, and you have the Lone Rider of Eternity, which is a large plastic figure. The ones you see here are the prototypes, which are cast in metal, which we know how to do in our shop. But then I painted them gray so you can see what they look like when they're gray plastic. Here you go. Here's all the characters. We have the Pistolier. He's got a rattlesnake hat band. I don't know if you can see that. I'll back it up a little bit. Now we have pictures on a lot of pictures on the Kickstarter page and the Facebook page. So Gunfight Royale will pop up right away if you go to a simple Google search for Gunfight Royale Kickstarter. It'll pop right up. And then on Facebook, Gunfight Royale has a Facebook page with a lot of shots of the game, work in progress, close-ups of the figures, all that kind of thing. Yeah, and we're working towards 15,000 for the just to be able to print the game. That's our goal. We're 2/3 of the way there. We're between 9 and 10,000 right now, and we've been on it for a week, and so we're looking at another 21 days, I think, left to go, and just get another 5,000. We can put it into production. Since we're a manufacturer, there's certain things that are easier for us. We're not going for $100,000 game Kickstarter. We're going to have something that will be immediately taken to conventions as soon as they resume. That we'll be selling through our distributors that we have now, and the main focus being to make a miniatures, as I was saying before, as we discussed, making a miniature tactical combat game available to non-hobbyists. And there's a lot of people who come to the booth at places like Adepticon and they see the thing and they have to decide where they want to, quote, get into the period, which means painting all the stuff, putting buildings together, doing all that. And none of that's necessary with this. So
That's awesome. So you got those 12 characters laid out. Why don't we talk about what it went in? You talked a little bit about it. The Calvin and Hobbes type style, Charlie Brown type art style. What were there any other influences on the characters specifically, or were they? Did you have someone on your team come up with those, or did you commission an artist to have those done for you?
Well, I'm the artist. I'm the sculptor,
Mm-hmm.
And they're essentially versions of some of the Gunfighters Ball characters we've been selling for a long time. So we kind of reimagined them as cartoon characters. There was a big influence from vintage late 19th century artwork. there was a style of cartoon from the late 1800s that sometimes people call them bubbleheads. It was the way the political cartoons were drawn, and it was the way children's games were designed. And there's some pictures on the Facebook page of, um, and also on the Kickstarter page in the downloadable rule book, you'll see some pictures of these vintage illustrations. And the thing about them was, unlike a chibi, if you're familiar with that term,
Mm-hmm.
uh, unlike a chibi, they're not abstracted in their features. Their features are very realistic, and that's what makes it different. Those old illustrations, the cartoonists had not yet developed the style of abstracting things. So you'll find these really realistic looking faces on these cartoon proportioned characters in these old illustrations, and that's what I was going for. So it's not exactly accurate to call them chibis, although that's probably the nearest analog that you can find in the game hobby to describe them. But that was the inspiration for the design.
That's awesome, and it's great to bring that in and hear that story behind that artwork because there's just so many different things that go into the game. Was there a reason for the Wild West style of the game?
That was where we were coming from as a company. So we're known for the Wild West,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was the if we had made a science fiction game or a uh, Middle Earth fantasy game or something like that, it would have been outside of our area of expertise, and we would have had to acquire all kinds of meme-ish knowledge of the thing. Like all the little memes associated with the old cowboy movies and the Wild West in general are something that's just second nature to us. So
Mm-hmm.
um, so that was something that was the closest adjacent to our what we were already doing. Yeah, so that's why it's the Wild West. Also, there's a really broad appeal to the Wild West, as we found with Gunfighter's Ball. When people who aren't familiar with the game just show up to play, they like slide into it right away. They know exactly how to role play it. They know exactly how to taunt each other and how to quote movie lines and all that kind of stuff. So that's always been a period that has a lot of goodwill associated with it among gamers.
That's great. And then oh, I just had a great question and I lost it. But what? Man, my mind drew a blank. Give me a moment. What was your favorite game prior to developing this game?
You mean my favorite game that we produced, or my favorite game to play?
Favorite game to play?
Oh well, that's going to be. I do enjoy Catan, um, but I would say my favorite game to play. Period is not going to be very relatable to your listeners because it's going to be historical miniatures. I would say there's a game called Volley and Bayonet. That's my favorite game to play. Um, of the games, I grew up playing the classic old games though. Our family played a lot of board games growing up. Aggravation, I mean, that's really basic. That's almost Parcheesi. Uh, I mean, we played a lot of that kind of stuff, and Rummy Cubes, um, Monopoly, of course, Careers, all those kind of board games that were around in the 70s. I'm old, so we're talking the 70s and 80s. Um, and but I will tell you what has frustrated me in recent years
Mm-hmm.
um, is that what I've learned about myself. This has nothing to do with the games themselves. Um, well, now some games I pick up right away and enjoy, like Cards Against Humanity. Boom, you're right there. It's not, games like that are easy to pick up, but I find myself having a lot of trouble with complicated rules, complicated games. Games maybe they're not that complicated, but I'm not familiar with the style of gameplay, and and I just lose interest before it even starts. Um, so I I really like super literal games. That's just I'm almost apologizing for it, I guess, because I'm a little intimidated by the board game genre for
Mm,
this reason. That I've gone to I go to board game night with our local guys, and I also go to war game night. War game night is easy because it's very mushy. It's not about the game at all. It's about having fun pretending to be a general. That's really what it's about. So when I sit down to play um, some of the board games, it takes me forever to just figure out what the strategies are and figure out how to play. And the collections of board games are so huge that people have that I may not play that game again for 3 years because they pulled it out that night. We played it. I barely got a handle on it. It was over. Oh, I did enjoy Pandemic a lot.
oh yeah.
Pandemic is a lot of fun.
Hmm.
Like that one. Um, and and there was one other that I really enjoyed, um, that is escaping me right at the moment, that I was able to grasp right. Oh, I know, Pompeii.
Mm-hmm.
Pompeii was a lot of fun. Yeah,
Absolutely.
but both of those are not very abstract. They're ones that you can latch onto very easily of what you're supposed to do and what's going on.
Absolutely. That, what you were just talking about brings me back to what I had forgotten and it had escaped my mind as well. It seems to be a theme of the Sunday afternoon for a moment there. But so I was thinking about like strategies and stuff that went into strategies, in the game, but also strategies you came up with, in dealing with the game. So since we're still focused on gameplay a little bit, let's talk about, that you said there are multiple different scenarios. One question I did have: are there any scenarios where there are like team plays, or is it
Yes.
single player only? So you said,
Yeah, there's team play. Yeah. So you've got it depends on how many players you've got, and there's a little algorithm for that. If you have this many people, you can have, so you choose one character each. Unless you have only two people, then you choose two characters each. And there are certain
mm,
scenarios that are free for alls and certain scenarios that are team.
mm,
And so if the free for all, obviously the Gunfight Royale is a free for all. So it'll say on the card, for instance, at the top, Yankee Gold. Well, that's a free for all. That's
okay,
every man for himself. Whereas Cheaters Never Prosper is teams.
mm,
And what's fun about the teams is those dirty trick cards, you're playing them with your teammates in mind. So you're supporting your teammates by playing those dirty trick cards,
mm-hmm,
coming to their rescue with all of a sudden, haha, there's a hornet buzzing in your guy's face. And then
yeah.
takes off from a shot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And then off of that, obviously to come up with these strategies, there had to be a lot of different discussions, and I loved hearing about how you've tied in cultural references to the games and enable other people to bring their cultural references to the game, being that it's a role playing game. There's something there to help connect us all. When we couldn't talk about the various Wild West characters in movies or TV shows or old comics, even the art styles. So that's really amazing. But as a team, what was your process? I'm curious, what was your process of creating these scenarios? Were they just kind of, let's talk about our favorite movies and kind of turn that into a scenario? Or was it, what was the process behind that for you
It
guys?
was it was very functional. So what we wanted out of the scenario was not, yeah, when we first started brainstorming, that's what we did first. But then we realized that what would make for a really sound game with good gameplay would be if they were distinct from each other functionally. So we wanted, for instance, we want a scenario where nobody has a weapon at the beginning and you have to find them. That's much better than saying I want a scenario that's like Django. So
Mm-hmm.
we wanted it to be, how like capture the flag is a scenario type, and that's sort of more the idea we had, was that each card would be more analogous to a level in a video game. So if you had one where one gang just has to eliminate the other gang, or you have one where you have to get the prize off of the board, and that was one of them, or one of them where the prize is in the middle of the board and everybody has to go for it, where the gold starts out in the middle of the board. Or yeah, so that was the idea, was to have the scenarios So we whittled it down, and we did a lot of play testing and just kept discarding things, because you start with brainstorming and then you got
Hmm.
to cut it down ruthlessly. You got to get rid of your sacred cows. You got to say, well, this, all that matters is whether it works or not. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter if you know, if you want to be John Wayne, doesn't matter. If being John Wayne doesn't work in the game, it's not going in the game.
Absolutely. So that's a great point to break it out into, game development as well. As your step one is the brainstorming and then kind of sorting through that. What kind of snags would you say you had to overcome in creating the game?
Yeah, the biggest snags I think were, and so I've it's important to have a creative person and an analytical person,
Hmm.
both in there. And that was extremely valuable in this case because, in terms of a snag, well, COVID was a snag simply from a marketing perspective because this we would have been demoing this all year long at Adepticon and the other conventions we go to.
Absolutely.
But from a game development standpoint, I think it was those sacred cows that you get people together, and you constantly, a game like this is all these different card decks, it's woven together. So
Mm-hmm.
it has to be carefully woven together because everything affects everything else. And you think something's a good idea and you make a change, but then you find out somebody can exploit that to break the game. And so finding all the exploitations where people can break the game, that was what I'm most proud of, that we did that. We really put this thing through the ringer and played it with people who were, rules lawyers, and would figure out that, oh, all you have to do is this. You're like, oh, okay, so we go back to the drawing board.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. And I wanted to let our chat know that we'll be jumping into our Q&A shortly. So if anyone has any questions about game development or the game specifically, if you missed anything, I'm sure Forrest would be glad to kind of touch back on some of the details of the game if you're interested in that. Don't forget to look them up on Facebook, Gunfight Royale, and check them out. Links to their Kickstarters are both on our website, powerupsouthbend.com, under the activities tab, which you can head to our website in the panels below. And again, find us on Facebook. Find Gunfight Royale on Facebook. Search Gunfight Royale Kickstarter. Check out some of those amazing illustrations because they are very good and very detailed. You can tell that they've put a lot of work into this. So what is your favorite thing about being a game developer, Forrest?
I think I have to broaden that a bit into being in the game industry.
Okay.
And that is, I grew up just daydreaming about this, and now I'm doing it, you know. This is the Gunfighter's Ball, which is the one that's in production and has such a following. It's really been a kind of a dream come true to see that, and then to be able to do it commercially, and even do it, have your own offices and your own shop, and to be respected by the people in the, historical miniatures industry,
Mm-hmm.
to have distributors. All that is just sort of, pinch me, because I never thought I'd be able to do that when I was a kid, buying Airfix figures and playing Blitzkrieg, which was an old Avalon Hill board game. Uh, yeah, I think that's the best part of it. Obviously, there's a lot of freedom. You're not working for someone else, but you're working for your customers, so you're always working for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's a great take because I like that. Again, you can hear it in the way you talk about the stories, the references, weaving it together, taking in other people's you know uh, aspects of production. What makes a scenario successful, and you have to take in your creative and your analytical side. Creative saying how can we make this more fun, maybe, or analytical um, being the story behind it or something. Definitely a lot of aspects to consider there. Um, and I had a question. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to get started making a game?
Yeah. Well, I would say there's never ever been a better time to design a game. Really, I mean, yes, there's a lot of people doing it. Yes, there's a a lot of, if you want to consider it, competition. But the thing is, if you want to get a game produced to be able to take to conventions, sell some of them, um, play with your friends, uh, there people like Game Crafter up in Madison, Wisconsin, can
Mhm.
produce all the parts for you. Um, there are other companies that do it as well. Um, I think the the differentiation has to be made between that and a mass market type of thing. Um, this is a hybrid. This is not a mass market game that you're looking at. I
Mhm.
mean, this is a boutique game, but it is being produced at a scale where the cost is low enough per unit that I can actually make money on it selling it. But yeah, there's never been a better time to see your ideas put into full color artwork and decent game materials. You can do that, and the sky is really the limit, because if exploding kittens can have the largest Kickstarter almost in history. Anybody, your idea has that potential. You never know.
Absolutely. I have another couple of questions for you, but we have one from the audience. And they asked, were the illustrations done on a computer program or drawn by hand? So why don't you tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about your sculpting process?
I'm a ZBrush sculptor. And so ZBrush, for those aren't familiar with it, is probably the most commonly used illustration program in the our 3D sculpting program in the miniatures business. Although Blender, I would highly recommend Blender because it's free, and it's so capable. Just as capable as ZBrush. It's just harder to learn, is all.
Hmm.
But ZBrush is what I use, and I sculpt. So hold me. So I have developed a whole inventory of digital assets that speed up my sculpting process. So I've got a basic dummy that I have came up with that's a rigged armature that I call Bob. And I have a big piece of advice for anybody wanting to get into digital sculpting for the game industry. And that is, do not use the stock figures that come with programs like ZBrush, because they're realistically proportioned, which is too skinny to produce good miniatures. Everything has to be thickened and exaggerated to make a game miniature. And it almost offends you to see it on the screen from an artistic perspective. Why has he got such big hands? Why is the gun so huge? Well, that's because of the casting process, and it has to be that way.
Hmm.
Um, uh, but that's an aside. So yeah, ZBrush was my go-to sculpting program, and I still use it almost every day. I usually create a set of 6 figures each month for Knuckleduster and release it. Um, so we'll have a gang of 6 cowboys, different characters from different movies, um, or from history. Maybe terrain items, things like a set of stuff to go in the blacksmith shop,
Hmm.
or furniture for the barber shop. That's another thing. You know,
Yeah. Do you ever,
animals.
yeah, I was just gonna say, do you ever do animals? Because I was thinking, gotta have the horse.
God, we have lots of horses. I take pride in sculpting the horse. My horse sculptures. I had to study a lot to sculpt a good horse.
Hmm.
Horses are one of those things that you think you know what a horse looks like until you try to draw it, and then you figure out that the joints are all in different places than you thought they were.
Hmm.
And then a horse in motion is even harder,
Hmm.
because now you got to figure out how that skeleton actually works to know where's that hip in relation to, yeah. And so I'm pretty proud of my horse sculpting, and I'm sculpting bison as we speak. I'm right in the middle of doing a set of bison.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see those. Do you have any horses? Our audience asked to see if you had a horse there.
Yes,
If
hold
you,
on, it's on a shelf across the room. I'll be right back.
absolutely.
Well, it should be. Do I have one at home is the question. I think they're all over at the shop. Go on knuckleduster.com, or go on the Knuckleduster Facebook page, and you'll for sure see some posting of a horse picture somewhere.
Absolutely. I was just gonna say, while you're searching, we should remind everyone that you can go to the
maybe something.
Kickstarter and see the detailed sketches of these miniatures, of some of these miniatures, all the miniatures, right, on the Kickstarter.
Yes, should be
Um,
on the Kickstarter page somewhere. We should have, yeah, pictures of them, um, of the actual. Yeah, in fact, there should be a picture of, as you scroll down the Kickstarter page and you see what the different levels and add-ons and stretch goals are.
mm-hmm.
You'll see a lot of figure images. They're much daintier in real life than they are on the computer screen.
Yeah.
Um, the one of the reasons we chose this style was because you want the figure to be small enough to look right on the board. So the body has to be small, but you can't tell what they are unless you have a head that's big enough to communicate the character in the figure.
Mm.
And character is so important. So you have that combination of this delicate little body, but then you have the caricatured face, so you can see character in the face. You know what this guy's like, but well, like this guy, he is stone cold. You can see it in his face.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he looks like Jamie Foxx or something. He looks.
His hands on his holsters, it looks like.
Yeah, he's ready to draw. He's got a rattlesnake hat band.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if his head was as small as the rest of his body, that'd be kind of hard to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't want people taking it too seriously. This shouldn't be so terribly dark that everything is hyper realistic and proportioned perfectly and everything, because I don't like actual gun violence. That's not something I'm into.
Right.
I'd
Right.
rather keep it a little bit at the Looney Tunes level.
Oh, absolutely. No, and I mean that's just an interesting thing, because these games give us an interesting outlook into what could be, or they're fantastical, right? They're
Yeah.
fantasy based, and so we're looking at the comedy of the situation, or the like you said, the lighthearted nature. The memes, the references, thinking about what that moment in history would be, and that can mean different things for different people. So if you have a group that really wants to be historical, then go ahead and do your role play that way. But like you said, keep it in the game, right? Because
Right.
games give us a sandbox to be creative, and that's what I mean. I love to hear it from your perspective as a developer as well, that you have that in mind. That hey, this is your sandbox. Play in it as you will, and keep the sand in the box, right?
That's a great way to think about it. That's a great analogy. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, when you think about the way we use the term sandbox for something like Gary's mod, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
and so you've got that ability to get in here and play your Wild West game. Choose which characters are going to be in it, and yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today, Forrest. A
Thank you for your
reminder,
time.
absolutely. Reminder to the chat to, Google search, go to the websites, look up Gunfight Royale, support their Kickstarter, because this is an awesome project, and I believe we will be making one of the pledges to the project as well, here in the next week, and look forward to supporting this awesome project as just another amazing story that's out there for our gamers to engage with. And that's the beauty of gaming, is that we can use other people's stories, we can engage with other people's stories, we can write our own stories, and it's just beautiful. Do you have any last words for the chat today, Forrest?
I think my only thing I like to communicate is that if you're a creative person and you get out there and make something, get out there and put pen to paper and design something. There's never been a better time. Sculpt something, learn to do some
Mm-hmm.
digital design. Yeah, engage with this hobby. At every level, whatever level, is the most satisfying for you. But don't be afraid, because it's never been easier to do it.
Absolutely. Those are wonderful words for 2021 as we start this year. And so, again, we appreciate your time. Thanks to everyone who tuned in today. We'll be getting this video up on YouTube for anyone who wasn't able to make it today. And we will catch you all for our next stream, which you can find at our website, again, in the panels below and the activities tab, which I believe it is Tuesday at 7 p.m., so the 12th at 7 p.m. But check the activities tab for certain. And that's all for today. So thanks again, and take care, everyone.
Thanks, Brian.
Absolutely.